Hello, in this video, this is Mr. Stein, and in this video, we are going to go through section 6.2, slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines, examples 1 and 2. By the end of this section, you should be able to determine the slope of a line parallel and perpendicular to a given line. It should be able to give you a line. You can say a parallel line will have this slope, a perpendicular line will have this slope. You should be able to judge if two lines are parallel or perpendicular, given their slopes or points on the line. Determine the location of points to give parallel and perpendicular lines. So let's take a look at examples number 1 and 2. Example 1. Line EF passes through these 2 points. Line CD passes through these 2 points. Line AB passes through these 2 points. Sketch the lines. Are they parallel? Justify your answer. Well, what we are going to do is we are going to determine the slope of each of those lines. So we're going to figure out the slope of line EF. So we're going to label one of these point number 1 and point number 2 for EF. We're going to use our formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, y2 is going to be 6, minus y1 is minus 2. 6 subtract minus 2, divided by x2 is going to be minus 1, and I put them in brackets. Subtract minus 3. Now that is going to equal 6 subtract minus 2 is plus 8. All over negative 1 subtract minus 3 is going to be plus 2. So we're going to get a slope of 4 for line EF. Now let's do CD. Slope of CD. We do the same thing. y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So this will be point number 2 right here. This will be point number 1 right here. So this will be y2 will be 7 plus 7 subtract minus 3 all over x2 will be 1 subtract minus 1. And plus 7 subtract minus 3 is plus 10. And 1 minus minus 1 is plus 2. So this is going to equal a slope of 5. So these two lines are not parallel. They don't have equal slopes. They're not perpendicular because they're not negative reciprocals. Now let's do slope of line B. And I'm almost out of space here. Slope of line AB is equal to y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. And I choose, this is point number 2, this is point number 1. So minus 2 subtract 7 all over minus 5 subtract minus 3. Minus 5 subtract minus 3. Now minus 2 subtract 7 is going to be minus 9 all over minus 5 subtract minus 3 is going to be minus 2. So this is going to equal to 4.5. None of these are parallel. Now let's sketch them out just to make sure. So line EF, I did in this pink color. Negative 3, negative 2, so there. Up to negative 1 and 6 right there. That's line EF. Line CD goes through negative 1, negative 3 right there, and goes to 1 and 7 right here. This is C to D. They kind of look parallel on here, don't they? They kind of do, but they're not. A and B. A goes from negative 3, 7 to negative 5, negative 2. This is letter A, B. Now this is why it's important to actually do the calculations, because these three lines all look pretty parallel. But according to our calculations, none of them are parallel. So it's important to be able to calculate the exact slope to determine if lines are parallel. All right, example number 2. Line ST passes through this point, and line UV passes through this point. Are the two lines parallel? Do they have the same slope? Are they perpendicular? Do they have negative reciprocal slopes? Or are they neither? Justify your answer. All right, so let's take a look at line ST. So we're going to determine the slope of line ST. So we do y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Now y2, I'm going to do negative 5. Subtract y1, 7. So negative 5 subtract 7. Put negative 5 in parentheses. Then I do x2, which again will be from the t, which will be 2, subtract negative 2. And I get negative 5 subtract 7 is negative 12. 2 subtract negative 2 is 4. So I get an answer of negative 12 over 4, negative 3 for my slope for ST. Now I do line UV. So I calculate the slope of line UV. y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. I choose this as point number 2. This is point number 1. So y2 is 6. Subtract 3. All over 7. Subtract negative 2. 6 subtract 3 is 3. 7 subtract negative 2 is 9. So this is equal to 1 over 3. Now let's look at these two guys. Are they the same? No, they're not the same. So these two lines are not parallel. Are they negative reciprocals? Well, let's look. This guy's negative, this guy's positive. This guy's 3, this guy's 1 over 3. They are negative reciprocals. So these two here are perpendicular. They are negative reciprocals. Now, let's take a look at that on the graph itself. So I'm going to graph ST. So negative 2 and 7 is right here. That's point S. And T is 2 and negative 5. So it's down here. So here's T. There we go. Let's take a look at line UV. Negative 2 and 3. So negative 2 and 3 right there. And 7 and 6. Right here. And this is U and V. And they look like they are perpendicular. But remember, in this question, it was hard to see that these guys aren't parallel because their slopes are close to each other. So here, it's hard to see if they're perpendicular or not just from the graph. It's much easier to judge from the actual slopes. All right. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, please put them in the